The breaking point. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the gleaming corridors of Assembly Station, her reflection multiplied in the crystal walls that stretched toward the artificial sky above. For 3 decades, humanity had walked these halls as junior members of the Intergalactic Assembly, always asking permission, always being told to wait. Today that would end. Behind her, Captain Mike Rodriguez adjusted his ceremonial uniform one last time. His weathered face showed the strain of watching his species being treated like children for years. Dr. Elena Vasquez clutched her research tablets containing humanity's latest breakthrough, the quantum fusion matrix that could revolutionize energy production across 17 star systems. The 3 humans walked toward the Grand Assembly Chamber, where representatives from 47 different species waited to deliver their judgment. Sarah's heels clicked against the polished floor, each step echoing like a countdown to something momentous. The massive doors to the chamber slid open with a whisper. Inside, the circular amphitheater rose in tiers around the central speaking platform. Beings of every conceivable form filled the seats, the tall, graceful Eternals with their flowing robes, the crystalline architects whose bodies chimed softly as they moved, the hulking dominators with their armored shells and glowing eyes. At the highest tier sat the 5 prime counselors, the ancient beings who had ruled the assembly for over 10,000 years. Their faces, when they had faces, showed the same expression Sarah had seen countless times before, polite condescension mixed with barely concealed irritation. Ambassador Chen, spoke Prime Counselor Vexthol, his voice resonating through the chamber's acoustic amplifiers. The Eternal's ageless features remained perfectly composed. The Assembly has reviewed humanity's latest proposal. Sarah stepped onto the speaking platform, feeling the weight of 47 species watching her every move. And what is the Assembly's decision regarding the quantum fusion matrix? A murmur rippled through the chamber. Several species exchanged glances that spoke volumes. The architects' crystalline forms chimed in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of nervous laughter. The proposal is denied, announced Prime Counselor Zethkar, his reptilian features twisting into what might have been sympathy. The technology is deemed too advanced for a species of humanity's current development level. Elena stepped forward, her scientific mind unable to accept the reasoning. With respect, Counselor, our simulations show the technology is completely stable. We've run over 10,000 test scenarios. Simulations, scoffed Prime Counselor Mordun, the massive dominator's voice booming across the chamber. Your species has existed in space for barely a century. We have been perfecting energy systems for millennia. Captain Rodriguez's jaw tightened. He had heard this argument before, during every technology review, every trade negotiation, every request for advanced systems that other species took for granted. Always the same refrain. Humanity was too young, too unpredictable, too dangerous. Sarah raised her hand for attention. This is the 43rd proposal humanity has submitted to the Assembly. The 43rd that has been rejected not on its merits, but because of who proposed it. The Assembly's decisions are based on careful consideration. Vexthol replied smoothly. Young species require guidance. Protection. It is for your own benefit. Protection from what? Sarah's voice carried across the chamber with unexpected force. From succeeding. From proving that new ideas can work better than old ones. The chamber fell silent. Such direct challenges to Assembly authority were rare and never went unpunished. But Sarah was beyond caring about political consequences. Your proposal shows promise, admitted Counselor Lyria, the energy-based being whose form shimmered like contained starlight. But the quantum fusion matrix could destabilize existing power structures across multiple systems. You mean it could make other species' energy monopolies obsolete? Mike said, his military training making him direct in ways that diplomacy often couldn't be. Another ripple of tension spread through the Assembly. The truth had been spoken aloud, and everyone knew it. Prime Counselor Zethkar leaned forward, his scales shifting color in agitation. Captain Rodriguez, you forget your place. The Assembly has maintained peace and prosperity for 10,000 years. We will not allow disruption from species who think innovation justifies chaos. Sarah looked up at the 5 Prime Counselors, then let her gaze sweep across the assembled representatives. In their faces, she saw the same thing she had seen for 30 years. Fear. Fear that humanity might succeed where they have become comfortable with their limitations. Dr. Vasquez, Sarah said quietly, please display the full quantum fusion specifications on the chamber's main screen. Elena hesitated for just a moment, then activated her tablet. The chamber's central hologram flickered to life, showing complex equations and energy patterns that made several species representatives lean forward in interest. These specifications, Sarah continued, represent not just an energy breakthrough, but a fundamental shift in how we think about power generation. The quantum fusion matrix doesn't just create energy, it harmonizes with existing systems, amplifying them rather than replacing them. The hologram shifted, showing how the technology could integrate with each species' current infrastructure. Even the most conservative representatives began muttering among themselves. Furthermore, Elena added, her scientific enthusiasm overriding her diplomatic training, the matrix generates zero-waste products and actually purifies the quantum field around it. Planets using this technology would see their energy costs drop by 90%, while their environmental quality improves dramatically. For a moment, the chamber buzzed with excited discussion. Representatives called out questions about implementation, costs, and timelines. The possibility of genuine advancement hung in the air like electricity before a storm. Then Prime Counselor Vexthol raised his hand, and silence fell like a hammer blow. The proposal remains denied, he announced. The quantum fusion matrix presents too many unknown variables. The Assembly cannot risk destabilizing our carefully maintained balance. Sarah felt something break inside her chest. Not her heart, but something deeper. The last thread of hope that the Assembly could change, could grow, could become something more than a collection of ancient bureaucrats terrified of progress. Captain Rodriguez, she said without taking her eyes off the Prime Counselors, send the signal. Mike's hand moved to his communicator. Signal, Ambassador. Code Phoenix. Authorization, Chen Alpha 7. The captain's eyes widened, but years of military discipline had him following orders before questioning them. He spoke a series of numbers into his communicator, then stepped back to await whatever was about to happen. In the chamber's communication center, hidden beneath layers of assembly security, a small human device that had been disguised as a translator relay suddenly activated. Across the galaxy, on Earth and every human colony, the same message appeared on screens in government buildings, military bases, and civilian communication networks. President Marcus Webb stood in the Oval Office on Earth, watching the transmission from Assembly Station. Around him, his cabinet waited with expressions of grim determination. They had planned for this day, hoped it wouldn't come, but prepared as if it were inevitable. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, President Webb began, his voice carrying to every corner of human space. As of this moment, humanity formally withdraws from the Intergalactic Assembly. The words hit the Assembly chamber like a physical blow. Representatives from 47 species stared at the main communication screen as Earth's leader continued speaking. For 30 years, we have sought partnership and been offered patronage. We have brought innovation and been told to conform. We have demonstrated our capabilities and been told we are not ready. Today, we choose a different path. Sarah turned to address the Prime Counselors directly. The Assembly has made its position clear. Humanity is not welcome as an equal partner. Therefore, humanity chooses to stand alone. Prime Counselor Mordun rose from his seat, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. You cannot simply leave the Assembly. There are treaties, obligations, consequences, all of which humanity accepts, Sarah replied. We will honor our existing commitments through the transition period outlined in Article 47 of the Assembly Charter. After that, Earth and all human territories will operate as independent sovereign entities. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions, demands, and threats. Some species seemed shocked, others angry. A few appeared almost relieved. Through it all, Prime Counselor Lyria watched Sarah with what might have been approval in her shifting energy form. "This is unprecedented," she said, her voice somehow audible above the din. "No species has ever voluntarily left the assembly. No species has ever been given reason to." Sarah shot back. Elena stepped closer to Sarah, her voice low but urgent. "The sanctions will be immediate. They'll cut off all trade routes, all technology transfers, all diplomatic immunity." "I know," Sarah replied. "We've been preparing for that possibility." Captain Rodriguez was monitoring his communicator, watching as confirmations came in from across human space. All colonies confirm receipt of Phoenix Protocol. Independence Day is officially active. As the three humans walked toward the chamber's exit, the shouting behind them grew louder. Threats, warnings, and predictions of humanity's inevitable failure echoed off the crystal walls. At the threshold, Sarah turned back one final time. "To those species who supported our proposals over the years, humanity remembers its friends. To those who opposed us out of fear rather than wisdom, we harbor no ill will. And to the prime counselors who chose stagnation over progress." She paused, letting her words carry weight. "History will judge which path leads to a brighter future." The doors closed behind them, with a soft chime that sounded remarkably like a funeral bell. The hidden strength. 3 months after humanity's dramatic exit from the assembly, the predicted collapse had not materialized. Instead, something unprecedented was happening across human space, and it was making several species very nervous. On the assembly station's command deck, Prime Counselor Zethkar studied the intelligence reports with growing unease. His scaled fingers traced patterns across the holographic displays showing human territory, each data point representing something that shouldn't have been possible. "The economic models are wrong," reported Advisor Kilthura, a crystalline architect whose form chimed nervously as she spoke. "Human colonies should be experiencing food shortages by now. Our trade embargo has cut off all agricultural technology transfers." "And yet," Zethkar prompted, though he already knew the answer would disturb him, "agricultural output is up 37% across all human worlds. They're not just surviving without assembly support, they're thriving." In the Martian agricultural domes, farmer David Kim walked through fields of grain that grew in soil that should have been barren. The plants reached toward artificial suns that provided precisely the spectrum needed for optimal growth, all controlled by systems that the assembly had claimed would take humans another century to develop. "The neural mesh is working perfectly," his partner, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, said as she monitored the growing cycle through a small device attached to her temple. "I can feel the entire dome's ecosystem as if it were part of my own body." The neural mesh was humanity's most closely guarded secret, a technology that the assembly had forbidden as too dangerous for organic minds. Through microscopic implants, humans could link their consciousness directly to machines, to ecosystems, and most remarkably, to each other. David activated his own mesh connection, and suddenly he could sense the needs of every plant in the dome. More than that, he could feel Jennifer's expertise flowing into his mind, her decades of botanical knowledge becoming temporarily his own. "The assembly thought we couldn't handle the neural load," Jennifer said, her eyes closed as she guided the dome's environmental systems with pure thought. "They were measuring us by their own limitations." Similar scenes were playing out across human space. On Luna Station, engineers were completing construction projects using mental interfaces that allowed them to control dozens of robots simultaneously. In the asteroid belt, miners were extracting rare elements using techniques that required perfect coordination between human intuition and machine precision. But it was in the laboratories of Europa Base that humanity's most significant breakthrough was taking shape. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood before a massive quantum computer that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. The machine was processing calculations that would have taken the assembly's best systems years to complete, doing it in real time through direct neural interface with a team of human mathematicians. Project Synthesis is ready for testing, she announced to her team. Around her, 12 other scientists were connected to the quantum computer through neural mesh, their combined intellectual capacity creating something greater than the sum of its parts. Beginning quantum tunnel stabilization, reported Dr. James Chen, Alina's research partner and Sarah's younger brother. The tunnel is holding at 94% efficiency. What they were accomplishing should have been impossible. The quantum tunnel they had created allowed instantaneous communication across galactic distances, bypassing the assembly's carefully controlled communication networks entirely. Alina activated her mesh connection and felt her consciousness expand to encompass the entire experimental setup. Through the quantum tunnel, she could sense human colonies thousands of light years away, their neural mesh networks creating a vast web of human consciousness that spanned the galaxy. "This is incredible," she whispered, her voice carrying to every connected human simultaneously. "We're not just communicating across space. We're sharing knowledge, experience, even creativity in real time." The implications were staggering. A breakthrough on one human world could be instantly shared with every other colony. A problem that stumped scientists on Earth could be solved by farmers on distant planets who saw connections that specialists had missed. Back on Assembly Station, the intelligence reports were becoming increasingly alarming. "They've developed faster-than-light communication without using our relay networks," Advisor Kilthera reported, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. "Their ships are moving between systems using propulsion methods we don't recognize." Prime Counselor Vexthul leaned forward, his ageless features showing the first signs of concern he had displayed in centuries. "Show me the propulsion data." The holographic display shifted to show human ships moving through space in ways that defied conventional physics. Instead of the straight-line jumps that assembly technology required, human vessels seemed to flow through space, following quantum currents that allowed them to appear anywhere in a system almost instantly. "They're using quantum tunneling for transportation," Vexthul realized. "But that technology requires computational power beyond anything a young species should possess." "Unless," interjected Prime Counselor Lyria, her energy form shimmering with what might have been admiration, "they'd found a way to link organic minds directly to quantum systems." The assembled counselors fell silent as the implications sank in. The neural mesh technology they had forbidden wasn't just allowing humans to control machines. It was letting them transcend the normal limitations of organic intelligence entirely. On the human colony world of New Geneva, Governor Lisa Santos received a quantum mesh communication that made her blood run cold. The message came from Captain Mike Rodriguez, now commanding the Human Deep Space Monitoring Network. "Governor, we're detecting massive energy signatures moving toward assembly space. Unknown configuration, but the power levels are off any scale we've seen before." Lisa immediately shared the information through the neural mesh, and within seconds, every human leader in the galaxy was aware of the potential threat. President Marcus Webb's voice echoed through the network from Earth. "All human vessels are to maintain monitoring positions, but take no aggressive action. Whatever's out there, it's not our immediate concern." But Dr. Elena Vasquez, still connected to the quantum computer on Europa base, was seeing patterns in the data that troubled her deeply. "President Webb, I'm analyzing the energy signatures. They're not random. There's intelligence behind them, and the mathematical patterns suggest something ancient, far older than the assembly." The revelation sent a chill through the neural mesh network. If something older and more powerful than the assembly was moving through space, it could threaten every species in the galaxy. On Assembly Station, similar conclusions were being reached through more conventional analysis methods. The signatures matched theoretical models for extinct species, reported Advisor Kilthera. Specifically, the void hunters mentioned in the oldest assembly archives. Prime Counselor Morden's massive form shifted uncomfortably. "The void hunters are myth. Stories told to frighten young species into accepting assembly protection." The energy signatures are real, Vexful said quietly, and they're heading directly for the core assembly worlds. As the ancient threat moved through space toward the heart of galactic civilization, the assembly faced a terrible irony. The species they had dismissed as too young and unpredictable might be the only ones capable of adapting quickly enough to face something that had destroyed civilizations before the assembly ever existed. In her laboratory on Europa Base, Alina felt the quantum computer's vast processing power turn toward a new problem. Through the neural mesh, she could sense thousands of human minds working together to understand the approaching danger. For the first time in galactic history, an entire species was thinking as one, and what they discovered would change everything.